In 2022, we had guys like Sicily and Sinclair, players who were sub 500k or around that mark, that went from mid prices or guys who thought, hey, they might be good, to the Uber Primos that we're picking in 2023. In today's episode, we're going to go through 5 players in the defensive line who we think might have the same impact as those guys. Hope you enjoy. Hey Joe, how you doing?
Good, Big J. Here talking about the back line. Yes, the good old reliable back line that in previous years wasn't as big of a deal. But last year we saw that, oh boy, you can really get onto the back of some great early cheap ones that can carry you all the way to the top. So yeah, definitely really excited to talk about these 5 players. And I think it could be a part 1. Part 2 will be coming up as well, but we don't want to make it too long for the viewers. So I think that's a good idea. Your thoughts on the back line this year as a whole?
It's interesting. Like you say, the tendency was kind of with guns and rookies to really go in and start, play 3 primos and then like 3 defenders who, hey, they're going to make money, they're rookies, that kind of thing. But I think with the backline trends now, players are very much priced accordingly to their points or a little bit under if you can get some sneakies like we're going to talk about today. And it really gives you that opportunity to actually come in and grab a bargain. Guys that you might be paying 500k for, that in 6 weeks during the, 6 weeks into the season, people are like, damn, I wish I had started him now. He's cost 550, 600k. So there's definitely always those opportunities. And I think as opposed to the midfield, maybe the forward line a little bit, but as opposed to the midfield, the back line, there really is only, let's say, 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4 guys who are set in kind of that top 8 best players. You know what I mean? Like, the midfield's got your Oliver, Laird, McRae, Bont, that's your back line. That's your midfield done at that point. Whereas the back line, there's always opportunity there. So today's video, just kind of showing everyone, hey, these are 5 guys we've identified and some reasons why. Have a look at during the preseason. So let's get started. Who's up first, Joe?
So yeah, these are options that aren't going to break the bank. This is the first year in a while, from what I can tell, where you've got a lot of these top players that are over $600,000 in the back line. And seeing as in general prices are really high, we're looking to find value where we can. Obviously not trying to overdo the value. So I guess what we're starting with is Isaac Cumming at the nice price of $521,200. So we're going to start from Isaac Cumming and work our way down to try and see where we can pick up some great value along the way. Isaac Cumming, GWS player, at 24 years old, so well and truly integrated into the AFL system. He's had a few preseasons under his belt, and he's averaged 94.5 before the bye. So that's a great start to the year. And then afterwards, it didn't really go as high as it started, because I think you had Harry Himmelberg come in and start playing that half-back role as well and being a distributor. So he did drop a bit in terms of average during the course of the season. However, we've seen, though, that the body of work that Cumming has been producing in his time at half-back for the Giants, he's a beautiful kick of the football. They love having him kick the ball into play. He had 129 kick-ins for the year, which is clearly the number 1 for the Giants. They love having him start things off. Second was Harry Himmelberg with 56. So that's like 73 behind Cumming. And from reports, Harry Himmelberg is training with the forward line. So if he's out of the picture as well, it just frees up Cumming to continue having that distributor role of halfback. The only question mark I would have at this stage of the game is what the new coach is going to do with Lachie Whitfield. Historically, in the past, he has played a great role at halfback himself, but in recent times, due to injury and maybe falling out of favor, he's been pushed more up into the midfield. If Whitfield continues to play in the midfield, then I think Isaac Cumming is tremendous value at $521,000.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like about him as well is there's really two things. When a new coach comes in, they like to identify really what the strengths of the teams are, and they'll generally keep players in the positions that they're scoring really well. If a guy is a defender who really contributes that kind of thing, they're not going to just straight away move him to the midfield. If you look at his stats as well, he almost rates elite in everything. So tackles, intercepts, handballs and kicks, really rating elite, so this player can play. GWS is kind of waning out of the point where Nick Haynes and Phil Davis commanded the back line, and Cummings really, really there as well. So last year, 2021, he actually, I think he was scoring about an 80 or so average. 2022 came in with the 92. So it's really, really good for him there.
Absolutely. And if someone is worried, they can send Harry Himmelberg back to the back line because this guy is a really talented footballer who can play both sides of the ground. Yes, that is something that can happen. But when you look at the Giants forward line, they need all of the help they can get, especially from a key position standpoint as a key forward. They're really relying on Hogan to be their primary goal kicker with the way their setup is right now. That I think they've identified they don't have much of a choice. They have to send Himmelberg forward because they're not getting enough out of the likes of like a Riccardi, for example, who can stand up, who is a bigger size body. And the loss of Jeremy Cameron is something that simply cannot be understated. So it looks clear that Himmelberg will be playing forward, and that's only good signs for Cumming.
Yeah, definitely. Next up on our list today, we've got Mason Redmond. So comes in at 510K. Obviously, you being an Essendon supporter, Joe, might be a little bit biased here, but here's some reasons why he might be a really good pickup. So he's 25, kind of coming into his prime into that back line. I reckon the Dons back line a little bit has been stacked, but feels like the players have kind of got defined roles a little bit there. And we saw in 2022, Redmond taking a few more of those kick-ins, getting a lot more of the ball, kind of being that distribution player as well. So for Supercoach, that's fantastic because, he'll always be involved regardless. Basically, if Essendon's doing poorly, he's not dependent on that. If Essendon's doing well, he's not dependent on that either. So during Essendon's wins, he averaged 127, which is fantastic. And in their losses, averaged only 78. So the ceiling's definitely there. He can score really big, but the floor is not as low as a lot of other players. He has competed a little bit with Ridley for the ball, but I think as Brad Scott comes in, similar to a Kingsley at GWS, there's going to be some more defined roles there. And something Essendon, happened and tried to do with their previous draftees is free up Ridley a lot more to be that kind of intercept role, not get as much ball distribution jobs because they really love him, the leap and mark, that kind of thing. And that only benefits Redmond. That's what we saw in 2022. And I think that's really going to happen again in 2023. What do you reckon about him, Joe?
Yeah, I love the Red Dog. I remember when we played you, I was just raving the entire match. It's Mason Redmond. I'm going to start Redmond next year. Yeah, of course, my passions run high. And Redmond for the price, I mean, like averaging over 120 in wins is really good. I guess it comes down to the listeners. Do they think that Essendon can win more games this year with an actual coach who has experience at the helm before? Unlike Truck, who with all due respect probably was a great assistant coach, but it was his first gig really coming in from Richmond to coach this side. So having an experienced coach than Brad Scott, you never know. It could actually end up creating a better environment, I suppose, for that back line. We're looking to be a bit more defensive. We have a different structure. We're doing our best to really limit the free-flowing run and gun of opposition teams. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect right from the start, but if we're not getting slaughtered with easy entries, Redmond could end up getting some more rebound 50s himself if they're able to break even. So there is definitely upside, I would say. Another preseason into him at 25 years old could really help to raise the floor. I think he's definitely value, especially if you're not willing to spend $600,000 on a Dawson or 600, Stewart, Sinclair, Sicily. That's big bucks, especially when you look at the midfield as well. So yeah, so I definitely think he's an option. He's an option. As is the next guy, Hayden Young, very similarly priced. He's only about $2,000 cheaper, and he's also playing that, or looking to play more of that distributor role off halfback. He was third for kick-ins at his team. Not a first, for example, like a Cumming was, for example, or he doesn't have a large number of kick-ins. Only had 24 for the year, so that's not a lot. He's definitely paled in comparison to a Luke Ryan, who I think is someone that has to sort of be moved a bit out of the way if it means for Hayden Young to really flourish. We've seen that he's been building up his disposals every year. He's taking a lot more marks. He's averaging around 7.5 marks a game. So there are different avenues to his scoring, Hayden Young. The only thing I think limiting him is whether or not, because Fremantle love as well Luke Ryan, and Luke Ryan's a beautiful kick of the football, as is Young. But the thing is, it can be hard having multiple chefs in that kitchen, and that's sort of a lot of the reason why a lot of people don't go with Essendon defenders. There are a lot of distributors out of the back line, and that's the same thing with Fremantle. There's clear upside. Absolutely, there's clear upside.
Yeah. One of the things as well, as I found out with looking at kind of the tree, looking at the preseason reports, is that Hayden Young really has been training the house down, has been taking a lot more kick-ins as well with, during the intra-club matches that fans have watched in there. And I think there was an article as well talking about it that way. It really looks like he's going to be the main man down at Freo's backline from, years to come. And I really feel like 2023 is going to be that year for him. Some people will hate the pick, saying, like you were saying before, they're a bit stacked. It's a bit convoluted. There's a lot of congestion in there. But it really seems like Longmuir has realised that streamlining the backline a little bit and giving players that space is something they need to do. Hence kind of why Griffin Logue was let go as well. So giving that role to Hayden Young, he's a real breakout player this year. Definitely one to watch and someone to consider if you're looking at, a D4 type position.
Yeah, it's a question as well, how deep you want to go in that back line. If you want to, because if you stack in the back line, you're going to be weaker. You won't be topping up as much in other lines. You might have to field a lot more mid prices. But this is the sort of discussion that we're having here. Trying to get as much value as you possibly can out of your picks, because there's going to be an extra round of football. Having people be in the prime of their careers as opposed to being really late in the twilight stages of their career. A longer season could make it harder for them. So having someone fresh, young, at the peak of their powers and really ready to take that next step. You can just see Hayden Young is really ready to fly and just take over. It's really a question of exactly like Longmuir identifies him for the future, but does that future start this year, in terms of allowing him to fly, or does he continue to play nice, I suppose, and collaboratively with the Luke Ryans? That's probably the only thing that's a bit more of a wait and see. Those preseason reports, yes, he took a lot of kick-ins, but Luke Ryan was on the other team. I'd love to see a bit later on when they're both together on the same side, just how much impact, I suppose, Luke Ryan's appearance has on Hayden Young moving forward. Someone who I think has no one holding him back is Nick Daicos, $502,500, entering his second season in the AFL, already priced this high. It just goes to show what a phenomenal year he had last year. I mean, he averaged 83 before the bye, and then he averaged 103 after the bye. So this guy did not lose gas. He did not run out of steam. He kept soldiering on, and he took around 12 kick-ins. So before the bye, that's roughly like roughly one a game. But after the bye, he took 41 kick-ins, all right? And that's roughly 3 a game. So this guy, he ended up finishing second in terms of the number of kick-ins for the Pies last year, and he played 100% of the time. He played on 100%. Now, when you play on out of that center square, it does count as a stat to you. And it seemed like he knew that because he played on literally every single time. And he finished second behind Darcy Moore, who was the number one kick-in taker for Collingwood last year, and he's injured. So if the number one guy taking kick-ins is injured, you can only be excited for Daicos. He's got the floor just off kick-ins alone. We know Jaden Short made a career off that, didn't he?
Definitely. And the good thing about it as well, we'll go back into training reports because obviously that's the preseason. This is the preseason watch list. The kid came in, I think he got first in the time trial this year, first in the endurance run, has just been dominating the preseason. Didn't really let up. Some players will come in, especially second-year players, be like, hey, I've had a really good first season. I did really well. Let's kind of lay about a bit. Let's not do our preseason training, Christmas break, eat some extra chicken, that kind of thing. Whereas Daicos has really, really kept the foot on the gas, has just been doing really well. In an aging, or what I would consider aging Collingwood team, with the likes of Pendlebury, that kind of thing, there's real opportunity for Daicos to go, maybe not to uber premium, 650K, but definitely 600K. And that's what we want him for. You can almost expect 100 plus average out of Daicos. And at 500K, it's really worth it. I've seen him in a lot of teams so far, and I can definitely tell why.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we're talking value, it's very hard to overlook a 500K almost sole kick-in taker, or it won't be sole, obviously. There will be some sharing of the load there, but he will be the primary one kickstarting the play for Collingwood, and they love to go, and he loves to go as well. This guy wasn't reliant on contested possession, for example, at stoppages. He hardly attended center bounces. This guy is the classiest of outside runners, and he won his ball just off sheer gut running and burning off his opponents. If he's now even done better in terms of his gut running ability, and he won the time trial with ease. The guy barely broke a sweat when you look at the footage, and he smashed all the Collingwood players. If that's what he's got to now over this preseason, good luck keeping track of this guy as he kicks the ball in, receives it back again, and kicks it out. He could easily have 2-3 kicks to kick things off. So if you see a behind and Collingwood's going to have a kick in, you get excited. 100%. It's value, pure upside.
Yeah, and he could even just take a few CBAs in that midfield as well, just depending kind of what the rotation's like. With that endurance base, he might seem a bit like a Sinclair, how he last year took the kick-ins, was the half back, but then rotated to the mid when they needed him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, was it David King who was going over there and watching some of the Collingwood preseason, and he just said this guy was finding the ball at will. He was training a bit with the mids, so it was predominantly a half back, and then you would very regularly see him in the middle of the ground with the ball, leather poisoning, the drill. I think this guy is an absolute must-have, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really important as well to kind of pick up those players so you're not scrambling to get them, especially round 3, kind of when your team's set before the first price rise, but then halfway through the season too, when you wish you could have picked them up at a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, there was like the George Hewitts, I suppose. There's probably someone in the back line last year who was quite cheap, but it was also at an interesting price point. Like, he was $399. Like, it was basically like $400,000, and it was a polarizing pick. Do you spend that much, or do you downgrade somewhere, free up some cash to go for a genuine, proven player? And yes, Daicos is now in his second year, and you see a lot of times that there are second-year blues. But there were people with misgivings about Sicily as well, and he has a proven history being a primo pick himself. So it doesn't hurt. You can wait a bit just to look, but I think for the price, you will never get this guy any cheaper. There's no doubt about it, and he will surely I think it's a 600,000 faster than a lot of people realize.
Now, the last player on our list today we've got is Ed Richards. So playing down the back line at the Doggies last year, came in with an 83 average. So that doesn't look great to kind of start with, but had some monster scores in the hundreds, which really impressed those that were looking at him, especially the people that kind of picked him up early as well. So the Dogs' backline has had a bit of a shuffle at the moment, and they've really injected some speed in there. With the likes of Caleb Daniel supposedly training with the mids, there's an opportunity for the likes of Ed Richards to push out a Bailey Dale, or at least share with him some of the positions there, some of the points in that back line. And in 2022, he did take some kick-outs as well, which was really impressive. What did you reckon about him, Joe?
Yeah, this guy, if you select him and he works out, then he could be one of the picks of the season, simply because I don't think there will be a lot of people selecting him. He is, again, at that awkward price point, and there has been a bit of change at the Bulldogs. But if you look at it a bit closer, and it does require quite a bit of research, I think, into this pick and the way the Bulldogs are going to be structured. You got, like you said, Caleb Daniel is training with the mids. You've now added Liam Jones in the back line. You've got Josh Bruce also trying to train as an intercept marker. So you've added some tall timber there without adding anyone small, and you're sort of moving out Daniel, who is probably the smallest of the small, and you're moving him towards the midfield. You've also got Bailey Smith, who normally plays on a wing, and he is currently under an injury cloud. So what could that mean? That could mean that you could have Bailey Dale playing more of that wing role, that wing position, which would free up Richards to play predominantly halfback and be that distributor. He didn't have a lot of kick-ins last year. I think he was ranked 4th in kick-ins. Even Treloar had more kick-ins than him last year. But I would imagine that given the change to their team setup and the current injuries that they've got to, like Bailey Smith, you could see Dale get pushed up to a wing. You also had Dunkley leave. So Dunkley's gone. McRae will probably come on board on the ball more and play less wing as well. So it just almost encourages that wide, fast-running Bailey Dale to play on a wing and have Ed Richards play a lot of halfback. And if that does all play out, now I know it's a big if. There's a lot of ifs to that. But if that all plays out, then this guy would well and truly be a top 6 defender because he's shown that he's got ability to consistently score over 110 in the backstretch of last year, which definitely caught a lot of people by surprise. But he has potential, and when you watch him, he just passes that eye test. He is a very smooth operator. He's a great player. He's definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, and I guess coming up to 24 years old, which will be this year, it's really kind of coming into his prime. Can he play the Nick Blakey type role at the Bulldogs? Something they desperately need since Johannesson's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit there. They haven't really got anyone to kind of play that role, and Richards is there, and he's probably going to do it. So that's why he's on the list.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like he's a butcher either. He's a very good kicker of the football. I mean, he has like an 82.5% disposal efficiency as well. So, his rise has been really interesting, and I'm still looking at it personally myself. But from what I can tell, his improvement compared to a Bailey Dale who suffered in comparison during that time, Ed Richards was cleaner with the football. He had a lot less clangers. I think, he probably had half the number of clangers that Bailey Dale had. So having that reliability of halfback, hitting up in the middle, you're going to see a lot more Bontempelli in the middle of the ground receiving these marks because he doesn't have to play forward as much. They've added Rory Lobb. They've added and Dunkley gone. So that just frees up for Bontempelli to play a lot more in the midfield. And with that huge size that he's got as a mid, we will have a lot of effective kicks as well, in addition to his great disposal efficiency for Richards. So there's definitely tremendous upside. There really, really is. Definitely one to keep watching. I know I got my eyes squarely on this guy. There's a lot of value here.
All right, guys. Well, that's our 5 plays for this episode of the preseason watch list defenders. If you like the content, like, share, and subscribe and tell your friends. We're going to be hitting up every line with the players we like and we're letting you guys know about him. Any final words, Joe?
Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. Really exciting. Supercoach coming closer. Let's go.